In this video, I will go over the most common bottlenecks that prevent 7 and 8-figure brands from scaling and that are the reason for them to plateau. I'll also explain how to solve that, and that is based on dozens of case studies for 7 and 8-figure brands that we scaled or audited their strategy and built an action plan for them to scale, where I saw this common pattern over and over again. So that having said, let's get straight into it. There are some reasons on the creative strategy side, some reasons on the media buying side, some also on the whole brand strategy and offer side. I'll go through all of them in this video. So first of all, the creative strategy. One common theme that I see among 7 to 8-figure brands is that they know how to make converting ads, and they do that really well. That is what they got them to 7 or 8 figures. But then at some point they struggle to scale with those ads and can't really understand why their framework stopped working. And if I take a look at their account, it's most of the time the same creative and the same angle that they go for. For example, there are only so many problem solution ads or brand identity ads or trend or meme ads that you can run. Because you have to understand that when you feed Facebook with those types of ads, Facebook will find you the people that are most likely to convert from them. Now, doubling down on what works is the best way to scale, especially from 6 to 7 figures. But depending on the niche and the product and the market size, you'll see that at some point you hit a plateau where you basically acquired all those customers that you could acquire with your approach. And this is why you need to change your approach in terms of the creative strategy. One of the methods that you can go into is going for a broader appeal, for more entertainment or educational ads. Calling out a problem and then delivering the solution, or telling your customers why your product is the better alternative, will take you only that far. Because the pool of people who will buy from ads like those are limited. So the way you can achieve way more scalability is going for broader appeal ads like podcast style ads, street interview ads, high production ads, and so on. Of course, the angle and the persona that you target with your ad is more important. But basically for every ad creative format, like podcast style versus UGC versus high production and so on, there is another bucket of your audience that consumes that type of content and is way more likely to convert. This is why going for a style of ads that appeals to the broader masses will always do a great job in scaling your brand. Having said that, it might be that you already go into those different ad categories and are still hitting a plateau. In this case, it might be reason number 2 that I will go over now. And that is focusing only on one angle or only one customer persona. I see it over and over again that the way brands scale to 7 figures or maybe even 8 figures depending on the market size is again by doubling down on their biggest and best customer persona and by doubling down on the winning angle. However, again, you have to understand that there are only so many people that will buy at your ROAS or cost per acquisition target that you can reach with that angle that you're taking. The others are simply less interested, and regardless of how good your ads are, they might watch it but they might not buy yet. So this is why it's super important to realize when this point comes and when it is less about doubling down on what works, but also more about testing different angles and finding new customer personas that you can advertise to from completely different angles. And because they haven't been hit by ads yet, they will convert extremely profitably and you get a whole other audience and bucket of people that you can advertise to, and that way you can scale much further. Let me give you some examples. For example, a while ago I audited a brand that is selling a retro camera, and the only angle they use to sell it is the nostalgia angle. In all their ads, they basically show you how famous and iconic locations look through the retro camera. They play into nostalgia, and this is how they sell their product. Now again, those type of creatives are extremely efficient, and this is why they're doing well. The problem is that they were doing only this. So I told them, hey, this is a really good working angle, but if you want to scale further, we have to not only do this, but also introduce other angles, like for example, a gift angle from boyfriends to their girlfriends, because we saw that the main audience is female. Another angle would be to go not for the broader masses, but for people interested specifically in photography and making more educational style content. Now, this might sound contradicting because previously I said you should take an ad approach that appeals to the broader masses. And that is correct, but what brands usually do is they drain their main customer persona so much that to scale further on a good cost per acquisition, you need to add smaller buckets of customer personas that will convert. They are less scalable, but by adding more and more of those small audiences in total, you can still double your revenue at your current cost per acquisition. Let me give you another example about customer personas. For example, there was a brand that sells pillows that help with neck pain. Now, they had a lot of great ad creatives, static, UGC, and so on, that go into solving neck pain and how this pillow help them solving neck pain. This angle and this customer persona, this broad customer persona of like neck pain, helped them to get to the point where they are. But the problem is, of course, this is a very vague and broad customer persona. So the action plan that I built for them is that they can easily go into neck pain much deeper. For example, you have to ask yourself, okay, what kind of people experience neck pain? What are the causes? You can literally just type that into ChatGPT, ask for customer personas, and it will give you customer personas. If you did that, you would see there are different buckets of people experiencing neck pain. For example, desk workers like us and remote professionals. Another bucket of people are athletes and fitness enthusiasts. Another one, drivers, and so on. Now, instead of making creatives that broadly go into neck pain, you can make creatives that go into storytelling in much more detail for those specific customer personas, like athletes, like people who work at their desk, and telling their story why they experience the neck pain and how this helped them. This is extremely authentic and resonates much more than just broadly talking about neck pain. Because if you describe a situation when a person had a specific problem, and even for the same causes like you, and then tell them, hey, this is how I solved it, it's way more believable and builds way more trust than just broadly talking about the problem. Now, I could go into more detail, but I'm sure you understand the point. Again, to recap on the creative strategy side, it's first of all going for more creative variety, for more viral ads that have a broader appeal, like podcast style, street interviews, and so on. And the second thing is going into specific customer personas and adding them to your targeting bucket rather than being like vague or rather broad in your messaging. So you want to go as broad as possible with your product, but be as specific as possible with your customer personas and different ad approaches for those customer personas to scale as cost efficiently as possible within those customer personas. Now, the third reason why 7 and 8 figure brands plateau is more advanced on the media buying side. I see many brands that are running campaigns on target ROAS, on cost controls and different bid strategies. Now, the logic behind this is that rather than spending a certain amount regardless of the cost per acquisition, you want to just spend as much as possible based on your customer acquisition cost goal. This is extremely handy when it comes to financials and overall short-term performance, but it can damage performance in the long term. Because you have to understand that when you set up something like a ROAS target goal or a bid cap goal, then there are only so many people that would actually convert on that target. Of course, you can still scale much more by introducing different angles, introducing different customer personas, and so on, and you can get very far with this, depending on your market size, even to 9 figures or beyond. But if you have exhausted all the other methods that I just mentioned, you will come to a point where you are converting all those different customer personas with different angles that are convertible at your customer acquisition cost target. And at this point, you have only less interested people left in the market that won't really convert even if you show them an extremely convincing ad. Now, at this point, you have two options. Either you just keep your current scale, you keep your ROAS target, let's say it's 3 or 4 or whatever it is, and you have great performance in the short term but can't really grow in the long term. Or the other option is you loosen your customer acquisition cost target up, because you understand that acquiring those customers will take quite a lot of time, and letting them go from completely uninterested to interested to customers will be much more work and much more cost intensive than just letting them go from interested to customers, which is exactly what happens if you set cost controls or ROAS targets. Because Meta is extremely well at what it does, and if you tell it, hey, I need a ROAS of 3, it will give you a ROAS of 3. But the problem is that this pool of people who will convert with a ROAS of 3 with your current creatives might be extremely small and is not scalable. Now, does that mean that you have to go into depth to scale beyond your current ceiling and just loosen up customer acquisition cost and be broke? No, of course not. But what you should do is, rather than looking at the ROAS target or the instant return, and rather than optimizing for the performance on the first purchase, you want to optimize for the lifetime value. It might be that some like urgent offer creatives will push some people over the threshold and get you some instant purchases, but those kind of people are not necessarily those that will come back over and over and keep buying from your brand. So rather than optimizing for this, you want to optimize for the people who will give you the best lifetime value. You just have to think, if there's a person who will buy at a ROAS of 3 for once and then maybe one more time, if there's a person that will buy at a ROAS of, let's say, 0.8, but they will keep buying every single month from you for 2 years, who is actually more profitable to acquire? And the answer is, in the short term, of course, option 1, but in the long term, option 2. And those people who are much more expensive to acquire are much more in the market. But if it's still profitable over the lifetime value, then it makes a lot of sense to acquire them and be profitable long term. This is really something you just need to do if you've exhausted all the other methods, going into different customer personas on a very detailed level, going into different angles and so on. And if you do that, at that point, you will certainly be able to afford acquiring people on a lifetime value basis rather than just going for instant profitability. But if you need help with the creative strategy, with creating this creative variety, with going into those customer personas in detail with your ad creatives, this is exactly what I do to 7 to 9 figure brands to grow them and help them scale. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the description and schedule a call with me where we can discuss what I would do for your brand. Apart from that, if you want to check you have all systems in place to properly scale and have no bottlenecks in terms of content creation, creative strategy, and so on, here's a video where I explain in detail all the systems that you have to have set up to make sure that you can scale to 8, 9 figures and beyond. Keep scaling. See you there.